Hello, I'm Anna. I'm 30 years old and live in San Antonio, Texas, though I'm planning to move soon. I recently left a difficult marriage after a year and a half, a decision that I couldn't make on my own, but with the help of my dad and the police. I often blame myself for getting into that situation. Maybe, if I'd been wiser, I could have avoided it. I've always been quiet and introverted, preferring the comfort of my computer to socializing. Going to bars was never my thing, and when I did, I was always cautious around strangers, too aware of the potential risks they posed. I lost my mother to a heart condition when I was just 7, and my dad, a Navy SEAL since he was 25, raised me alone. His job kept him away for long stretches, but he always made an effort to stay in touch through letters and phone calls. After my mom passed, my dad came home to find me inconsolable. He did everything he could to comfort me, promising that everything would be okay now that he was back. But I knew the truth, her death had broken us both. I'll never forget the first time I saw my dad overwhelmed with grief. I'd had an accident at the playground, and he rushed home to be with me. He took a short break from work and left me in my grandmother's care while he returned to his duties. Before he left again, he told me to be kind to her and promised to return soon. He even asked my grandmother to teach me how to bake my favorite treats. I promised to learn and waited eagerly for his return, clinging to the memories of those moments. When it was time for him to leave once more, he promised to try the dishes I'd learned to make, which gave me a sense of purpose. As he said goodbye, I felt a mix of sadness and excitement. "Take care of yourself, honey," he told me, and just like that, he was gone again, leaving me with the hope that in 7 months, he'd be back. True to his word, he sent gifts and souvenirs from his travels, each one carrying a little story of its own, a way for him to stay connected despite the distance. I spent most of my time indoors with my grandmother, assisting her with tasks. I preferred the solitude of home to the company of other kids. As I grew older, the digital world became my refuge. Online, I could explore new ideas and connect with people without the pressure of socializing in person. It was here I discovered my own community, a group of like-minded individuals who understood the value of solitude and the beauty of shared interests. The internet became a place where distance didn't matter and people from all walks of life could come together. It was through this digital world that I met Brian. He introduced himself as a streamer, and our friendship began with text before moving on to video calls. We both hid our identities. He wore a scarf and a beanie, while I hid behind a Batman mask. "Hey Anna, great to finally see you," he said. "Hi, Brian, it's nice to meet you," I responded, my nerves creeping into my voice. "How's it going? Talk to many people today?" he asked, his tone light. "I'm okay, just a little nervous," I admitted. "Totally understandable," he replied, "but don't worry, I'm as awkward as you are." The conversation eased from there. We connected over our shared awkwardness, both of us unsure but comfortable in the digital space. "So, how did you end up here, in the online world?" I asked. "I've always been curious about meeting new people, understanding different perspectives, but I spend a lot of time at home, so this space is perfect for that," he explained. "And you?" he asked. "I'm pretty introverted, too," I said. "Real-life interactions can be exhausting, but online, I feel safer. I can express myself without the pressure." It felt good to know that virtual connections could offer genuine interactions. Talking with Brian felt serendipitous, like we were meant to cross paths. We shared stories and found common ground, and with each exchange, I felt more at ease. "Thanks for making this so easy," I said, grateful for his open and friendly demeanor. "The pleasure's mine," he said with a smile in his voice. "You're great to talk to. If you ever want to chat again, I'm usually playing Mario. Do you game?" "I'd love to, but no, I mostly blog and browse Reddit," I shared. "There's so much to learn from other people's experiences there." "Yeah, sometimes our own lives feel so mundane. I trust my online friends more than my offline ones," Brian added. "That's what I love about this world. There's no pressure. You can engage when you want, step back when you need." Through our conversations, Brian and I developed a genuine bond, a connection that felt just as real as any friendship formed in person. This virtual space, built on mutual respect and openness, was proof that the distance between screens could never diminish the value of true friendship. Though I'm not sure where this journey will take me, I know one thing for sure: the lessons and experiences I've gained from this online world have shaped who I am. But my dad, being old-fashioned and cautious, wouldn't approve if he knew I was making friends with people I've never met in person. The last time he visited, he used the opportunity to lecture me over dinner. "How are your studies going, Dove?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Dad, I graduated months ago, but I guess you wouldn't know. You couldn't make it," I replied, a trace of sadness slipping into my words. He paused, guilt flashing across his face. "I know I missed it, and I'm really sorry. Work just kept me away, but I regret not being there for you, Anna." His apology was genuine, but the sting of his absence lingered. Despite everything, though, our bond remained, complicated but strong, full of love, concern, and a quiet, sometimes strained understanding. "I even sent you an email about your birthday," he added, trying to change the subject. Tomorrow's my birthday, huh? I said, a little more sarcastically than I intended. Please, don't call me that anymore. I'm not a kid, I protested, embarrassed by the nickname. In my eyes, you'll always be my little dove, he smiled, his tone warm, before shifting gears. But let's talk about what's next for you. Have you thought about work? I'm not sure yet, I answered, uncertainty creeping into my voice. What do you mean, not sure? What's everyone else doing? What are your peers up to? He asked, his concern turning into something like frustration. I don't have friends, I admitted quietly, the weight of isolation pressing down on me. He blinked, clearly shocked. Anna, I didn't send you to live at your mom's house just so you could avoid the world. There are so many people out there, so many opportunities. You can't keep staying in like this. That's the problem, Dad, I said, my voice soft but firm. I don't know how to meet people. I mean, I have friends, but they're all online. Online? His voice tightened with a mix of concern and disbelief. That's not the best way to make friends, Anna. I shrugged, not sure how to explain the comfort I found in digital spaces, where interactions felt easier, safer. Okay, what if we went out for some— Why bring Mom into this? My voice snapped, the anger rising quickly. What are you trying to say? I'm not trying to imply anything, sweetheart, he said, his voice calm, though tinged with regret. I just want to find a way for us to keep moving forward. We both have to. His words only fueled my anger, and before I could stop myself, I slammed my hand on the table. I stood up abruptly, leaving my meal unfinished, and walked away. Anna, don't treat your father like this. I'm just trying to help, he pleaded, but I was too upset to listen. You don't understand me at all, I snapped, the words more hurtful than I meant them to be. Frustrated, I retreated to my sanctuary, the online world. Brian was always there when I needed him. He was patient, understanding, and kind, offering me the comfort I needed as I navigated my emotions. Being an introvert, I found peace in the quiet of my home, with the only sounds coming from my keyboard and the soft hum of my computer. In this space, I could be myself, without the pressure or fear of judgment. The outside world felt distant, moving at a pace I couldn't keep up with, but online, I found a kind of refuge. Meanwhile, my dad had grown increasingly concerned about my online life. Ever since I admitted just how much of my time was spent in the digital realm, he'd been pushing me to step away from my screens and re-engage with the world beyond them. I knew he'd struggle to understand. My dad believed that isolating myself in my room was stifling my growth, urging me to push beyond my comfort zone to experience the world. But the thought of stepping outside those familiar boundaries filled me with anxiety. Hoping to find some understanding, I confided in Brian about my frustrations. Hey, Anna, what if we met up? We're both introverts, so we could find a quiet place, somewhere not too crowded. I know the perfect spot, he suggested, surprising me with his offer. The idea took me off guard. I don't know. It feels sudden. I need time to think about it, I replied, unsure. No pressure, he reassured me. Take all the time you need. When you're ready, just let me know. Here's my address, you're always welcome. His calm, patient tone made me feel like there was no rush. Why are you so kind to me? I'm basically a stranger, I asked, still puzzled by his warmth. Because I like you, Anna. I know it sounds strange, but I really do. I'd like to get to know you better. Whenever you're ready, you know where to find me. His sincerity struck me, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought. Agreeing to meet Brian in person was a huge step for me, but I was determined to try. As I drove to his house, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness. To my surprise, he lived only 35 minutes away. After a deep breath to steady my nerves, I knocked on his weathered door. It creaked open, and there he was, his smile instantly easing the tight knot in my chest. His warmth was genuine, and though his home wasn't anything extravagant, it had a cozy, lived-in charm that made me feel at ease. The inside of his house spoke volumes about him, shelves crammed with well-worn books, a collection of board games stacked neatly in a corner, and a desk set up with multiple monitors, hinting at his passion for gaming. Welcome to my humble abode. I am honored by your presence, my fair, master, he said with a mischievous grin, trying to slip in a bit of gaming humor. I may not get all the references, but thanks. Your place is really cozy. Do you live here alone? I asked, stepping further inside. No, my fair princess, he replied, still teasing. I share it with my mom. He led me deeper into the house, inviting me to explore a little of his life beyond the screen, a gesture that helped bridge the gap between our online conversations and the reality of our growing friendship. Brian lived with his mom on the ground floor, while he had the top floor to himself. He showed me around, and we spent the rest of the day getting to know each other better. Meeting in person only deepened the bond we'd already formed online. His kindness, humor, and the ease of our conversation made me feel even more connected to him. As evening approached, Brian suggested we take a walk in the nearby park. The idea calmed my nerves, and soon I felt comfortable, The initial anxiety fading into something more familiar, something easy. Being with him felt like the next natural step after our online chats, and the closeness of our in-person meeting added a new layer to our bond. During our walk, I opened up about not celebrating my birthday this year, explaining the fallout with my dad. Brian listened attentively, offering sympathy and hoping that, in time, my relationship with my father would heal. He believed family ties were too strong to stay broken for long. But as our friendship grew, I started to notice subtle shifts in Brian's behavior. His possessiveness began to surface. He expected constant communication and grew upset if I spoke to others, making me feel like I was becoming a piece in some game he was playing. Adding to the complexity of our situation was his mother's disapproval of our relationship. It stung to know she had already formed negative opinions about me, even though we hadn't met. Brian's closeness with her was understandable, but it made me feel like an outsider, like I didn't truly belong in his world. The most perplexing, in a whirlwind of misplaced trust and vulnerability, I found myself bound to Brian through a secretive marriage, one that had been manipulated into reality by his persistent persuasion. He painted a picture of my father's disapproval, making me believe that only he truly cared for me, that I had nowhere else to turn, and so, I silently accepted a union I hoped would be my refuge, but it quickly turned into anything but. As the months passed, Brian's mother revealed a side of herself that thrived on diminishing me, her cruel words and actions cutting deeper each day. At first, I tried to convince myself that her harshness was just a misunderstanding, that in time she would soften toward me, but instead, her disdain only grew, morphing into a constant source of emotional pain. Whether criticizing my cooking, questioning my cleanliness, or belittling my efforts, it became clear that her goal was to make me feel unworthy, unwanted. Meanwhile, Brian remained distant, lost in his own world, leaving me to face the torment of his mother alone. This isolation magnified my sense of helplessness. I began to doubt myself, wondering why I couldn't stand up for myself, and regretting the estranged relationship with my father that I had once chosen. One particularly difficult day, already weakened by illness, I tried to find solace in sleep, but my brief respite was shattered by a splash of cold water. Brian's mother stood over me, her face twisted with contempt as she scolded me for resting instead of doing chores. Her slap stung, shocking me into a state of numb disbelief. It was the tipping point. "I'm done," I shouted, my voice shaking with defiance. "I'm not doing anything for you or your son anymore. I've had enough." The words were a cry for dignity, a desperate attempt to reclaim something that had been taken from me, my self-respect. Just as I turned to leave, a sharp pain struck the back of my head, and everything went black. When I regained consciousness, my head throbbed painfully. I tried to move, but my legs gave way, and I collapsed to the cold floor. Confusion clouded my thoughts as I tried to make sense of where I was. The room around me was dim, the only light coming from a single bulb hanging overhead. Faint, muffled sounds reached my ears, growing louder as they approached. Straining, I crawled toward the noise, finding my way to a metal door with a small window. I pulled myself up, using the door for support, just as the latch clicked open. To my horror, it was Brian who stood there, grinning, his eyes cold and mocking. "Is my wife scared of the dark?" he taunted, relishing in my fear. I begged him, pleading for him to let me go, insisting that this cruel joke had gone too far, but his words were like knives, cutting through my pleas. He informed me that this was my punishment for defying his mother, that I would be locked away, isolated from the world as retribution. My heart sank as he mocked me further, pointing out my complete isolation, the lack of family, and how no one would come to my rescue. The weight of his words crushed me, but then, through the haze of my despair, I felt my phone in my pocket. It was cracked, but it wasn't entirely dead. The screen flickered weakly, offering a glimmer of hope. In that dark, oppressive basement, fear and resolve stirred within me. How had I let my life spiral so far? How had I ended up here, merely for standing up for myself? The thought of contacting my dad gave me a reason to hold on. I clung to the memory of his number, memorized and never forgotten. Trembling, tears blurring my vision, I dialed, my voice a whisper as I recounted the nightmare unfolding around me, praying he would come to my rescue. 3 agonizing days later, just as despair threatened to swallow me whole, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. My heart pounded, hope blooming as I listened for footsteps. Then, the door swung open, and there stood my dad. His presence was a wall of strength, his expression a mixture of relief and fury. I collapsed into his arms as he ushered me outside, the police at his side. Brian was arrested, and their lies crumbled in the face of the truth. The consequences of their actions were now inescapable, and the looming court date promised a reckoning. "You have no idea what awaits you," my dad said, his voice firm and heavy with anger. As we left the basement behind, I felt a surge of courage. I had endured, and I was free. The nightmare was over, and the weight of Brian's cruelty was finally lifting. Moving to Jacksonville with my dad marked a new chapter, one that left the shadows of Texas behind. But this ordeal had taught me a vital lesson, to never place blind trust in online connections without understanding the reality behind them. A painful chapter had